Well, hello from a lovely sunny morning here at our little hidden away communal garden. It is Sunday the 10th of June, and like I say, it's a lovely day. I'm going to show you what we've been doing at the plot over the last week, so hope you enjoy this little video. Right, first things first, I'll show you what I've done today. I've made a little well, I bought a little bug hotel, which I'm going to show you, which I've just erected in the last 10 minutes, so I'll go and show you that. There you go, there's our new bug hotel. Well, it's not new, I've had it in the garden for about 3 or 4 years, so I thought I'd bring it down to our little communal garden. There's a chap that makes them in a little town near us called Mould. Quite nice with the little stencil work on them, and a little rooftop straw and pieces of bark, which is very good. As you can see, our little wildflower meadow is doing really well still, after we've shown you it last Sunday. Doesn't help with me stepping over these pieces of grass and flowers, so I'll try to not trample on them as much as possible. Our other little flower garden's coming on well. This is the sunflowers that we planted about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're doing okay, but there is a bit of slug damage, which has been a problem on this particular site, but we're trying to get round it, introducing a slug into the 30 or so beds that we've got. We introduced nematodes about 5 weeks now, and you're supposed to do them on a 6-weekly cycle, so I've ordered some more, so we're going to introduce those into the beds now that there's more plants growing in them. There's one or two, this little front here, we've got nasturtiums in this front here, so there's 1 or 2 poking through. I can just about see, so I'll water these after. There you go. And there's our chives, which I didn't mention last week. We retrieved these from the top end of the communal garden in all the undergrowth, and we've planted them into this little bed here, and as you can see, they're in flower. And there's a geranium that we introduced here, which is in flower. And the rosemary's doing well, which we planted probably over a week ago now. Some oxeye daisies, adding a bit of colour along the fence. I've actually introduced, well, put some wigwams into these 2 runner bean and cobra bean beds to help them make their way up the canes. As you can see, a couple of days we put the wigwams up, and you can see the runner beans are starting to climb up the canes. So there's 3 beds here of cobra and runner beans, which are all doing pretty well. These sticks that we use for the broad beans were from the orchard, which I'm showing you now, which is just over in that direction. We collected the branch when they were pruned earlier on, a while back, and we used the sticks as support for the broad beans. And a few weeks ago, the actual sticks were flowering. I should have took some film of that actually. Never mind. But the broad beans, as you can see, are coming on great. Last week when I did the video, after I did the video, I introduced some beech branches because I was pretty concerned about the sugar snap. Well, all our food is organic. The organic sugar snap peas were lying along the soil in the beds, so I introduced some lavender, old lavender branches, and some beech branches, and they're supporting our sugar snap peas. There's another bed of broad beans. Over in this bed we've got onions and beetroot. In this in this bed we've got French beans that need supports. Has in this bed as well French beans. These end beds are going to be used for companion planting in the future. So we started work on these beds yesterday. We erected 4 of them yesterday, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, which run along the side of the fence. So we've got French beans in these 3 beds here. Onions and beetroot again in these beds. And French beans again. So we've got broad beans in these beds, and I showed you the sugar snap before in that bed. We've got a space here. I've got an organic courgette at home, which has it snapped off at the stem, and I repotted it and it seems to have taken, so I may even put it in this bed here alongside the sugar snap peas. That's if they're okay to companion plant it with each other. And as I say, we've still got some slug damage. I'd say since we introduced the nematodes that we have had probably 60% happy with the situation with the nematodes. So hopefully that can improve when we get our next nematodes. There's your onions again. As you can see, it's a lovely setting we've got here in northeast Wales. This bed here is going to be a wildflower bed and interspersed with sunflowers and lavender. And at the end here, on these uprights, I'm going to put hanging basket brackets with little hanging baskets on this particular post here and this post here. And in between, along this fence, we're going to put a bench with pots and flowers each side of the bench. And in these beds, as I mentioned, companion planting for the vegetables, we're also going to be putting some lavender as well. So while you're sat on the bench, you can, once this is all done, this bed, a wildflower bed, it will be quite pleasant. Obviously we're going to move it forward a bit, the bed, probably another 2 or 3 feet forward to allow for space for the bench. As I noted last time, we have got plenty of space between the beds here. Each of the beds are lined with plastic, and the membrane, the fabric, sorry, is tucked underneath the beds as well for extra protection, but we're still having the problem with the slugs, hence introducing the nematodes. In these beds here we've got pod peas, so they were only put in yesterday. And here is our corn growing well. As you can see, it has grown a little bit since last week, and we've got a bit of slug damage, as you can see on the leaves here. These beds were introduced with nematodes 2 weeks after, which was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and about 2 weeks after the beds on the far side. So the corn is doing great. There's a couple of peas in there alongside the corn, so hopefully they'll act as the corn will act as supports for corn in these 2 beds, as I showed you last week. These 2 beds have particularly been damaged by the slugs, so we did a bit of research last night and wanted to find out what caused all this damage to the leaves on the corn. And what we found out was that the reason it's sort of mottled like that is that it is slug damage, and because the ribbing of the actual leaves don't get damaged by the slugs, it gives it that effect that the soft leaves are eaten by the slugs. Hence, as you can see, the holes in the leaves. In this bed we have chard and onions, and they seem to be doing fine. onions in this bed. We've got no other plants in this bed. We'll probably introduce salad leaves into this bed as well. We've got a free bed here. Our courgettes are doing well since last week, have you noticed? Oh sorry, these 2 courgettes were introduced in the week, so they're coming along great, and these 2 courgettes were in the last video. So here we are with the beds, the companion beds that we attached to the end of the collars of the raised beds. So they're going to be used for companion planting, and the same on the other side when we eventually get round to it. One of the jobs that we did a few days ago was create a pumpkin bed. It was a bit tricky because we've got this mound of soil which is going to be used for the companion planting beds and also for free raised salad beds at the other side of the shed, a bit further down the plot. Here are our munchkin pumpkin plants. As you can see, we've sunk plastic pots. Maybe it would have been better to put terracotta pots in so that we can fill up with water and they can slowly release along the side of the root systems of the munchkin pumpkins. It seems there's a lot in this bed of munchkin pumpkins. There's 7 plants altogether, which is a little too much for the size of the bed, but we're looking at in a way that if we can get a 50% success rate without any damage from slugs, that there'll be enough pumpkins in this particular bed. The frames are about 6 foot high, where we can actually extend the frames need be. It would be nice if we had a framework that goes across from the shed and onto our little tool shed and act as a little walkway through under a tunnel of munchkin pumpkins if they're successful. But I've been watching a few YouTube videos and been on some discussion forums, and you could have a very big amount of foliage from the munchkin pumpkin plants and only have a couple of munchkin pumpkins if you're lucky from each plant. So hopefully we get more than 4 pumpkins, which is the amount of people that work on this site at any one time. We've made a little path along the back so that we can actually get to the pumpkins here. Obviously we understand that this could be well and truly overgrown. This particular area gets the sun. Even though we've got the popular trees there, the sun at this time of year is sort of where my index finger is, goes to about that high, and then it'll start getting lower as the year goes on. There's our mint plant that still hasn't been planted in yet. In this bed we've got chard and spinach. So we replanted the chard 2 days ago, and obviously they were lying flat after being moved, but now they've perked up, as you can see here. But there's no visible signs of slugs, but I think the nematodes have been doing their job, and so as we say, we've got a delivery that's due next week, so we'll introduce nematodes into the 31 beds that we've got. We're just waiting for some butyl liner for our pond and dig it out a bit deeper. All these stones are going to be sorted out properly, and what we're going to do is have the butyl liner around and a few marginal plants, and also we're going to keep the logs and put a rockery around the edge so that we've got shelter for toads, frogs and any other amphibians that happen to come along. It would be nice, we were only talking about it the other day, as if we had slow worms on site, just to try and eradicate the, well, help eradicate the slow worm problem, sorry, slug problem. Right, I'll take you a little bit further down. Put a couple of troughs down the other day, so we're gonna try and get some cheap tomato plants and have some late, hopefully have some late tomatoes. We're going for, I believe that varieties like Gardener's Delight and Sun Gold, with them being like a cherry, a bit bigger than the cherry variety, are a bit better towards blight, a better resistance towards blight. I don't know if that's true or not, if anyone could help us with that situation. This area's been dug over. And here we have some Brussels sprouts, and these were planted yesterday. They're being protected by netting at the moment. but there is still gaps that any rodents, and well, they're going to get in anyway. So that is our Brussels sprouts. These beds here are going to be used for purple sprouting broccoli and cabbages, I think, as well. And now we enter the jungle area. That's obviously we haven't all this particular area here is going to be worked on in the late autumn and into next spring and summer, all being well, and a continuation of raised beds again along this stretch. And along here there will be a stretch of raised beds as well, and back there in front of the shed we're going to have a little garden as well. I'm just hoping this camera doesn't, battery doesn't run out. Right, here's our potatoes. I don't know what varieties these are at the moment, because one of the other volunteers on the community garden has been looking after the potatoes, and as you can see, we have flowers on them. There you go. Right, look at the size of that fennel. There you go. And I cleaned out this bed, but we found a couple of golden beetroots and a few other beetroots as well. So not looking too well, that. So obviously a bit of work there. Oh, some forget-me-nots still in flower. And another potato bed here. And another potato bed over here. Well, my battery's going to run out any time, I should imagine, so I'm going to leave it for now, and I hope you like this little video from our communal garden. As you can see, things are starting to grow, and hopefully in the late summer that we'll have some colour as well, with the wildflowers that we've been planted and lavender and things like that. So as I say, it's all a learning curve for me, especially on this site, because I've always been a novice sort of gardener back home, but I've been learning from the other volunteers on site, and been a little bit more confident enough to make these little videos for you. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll speak to you soon. Have a great day.